Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today for another Halloween video and another God video. We have many deities of the departed for us to potentially look at, from Formasa, who judges the dead, and Ugathoa, the first undead. However, both of them are also Starfinder deities without full write-ups, and I want to at least delay until we can hear something, especially with galactic magic coming soon. So we are going outside the main 20 inner sea gods today to deal with another god, unfortunately popular across Avistan and its neighbors. The god of graveyards, tragedy, and accidental deaths, Zyphus. But as tradition, we will start where we can find the information of Zyphus if you want to look for it yourself. As per usual, 1E and 2E's God and Magic is where you will find some of the basic information on the gods. For his full entry, you will find Zyphus in the Adventure Path, The Iron Gods, in the 5th book, Palace of Fallen Stars, which is in and of itself something we will be bringing up later. His full information can be found in the book Inner Sea Faiths, the book which talks about the Inner Sea gods worshipped just below the Big 20. We have two more minor bits of information in two of our old friends, the Faiths of Corruption and Divine Anthology. Zyphus is a god who began as just a normal mortal, and then he died. Not from old age, not from war, disease, or famine, but from a complete accident and a completely pointless death. Some say even the first pointless death. When he found his soul before Formasa, he screamed and cursed at her for his fate, then escaped the boneyard as Ugathoa did before him. As the first pointless death, he arrived back to Galorian as a minor god, and as one who sputters and curses at all deities and the concept of fate itself. Appearance-wise, both when he appears to his followers and his appearance in art, he appears as a figure in a black hooded robes, much like one would probably expect more on some kind of Grim Reaper. His mouth is trapped in the permanent form of a scream, and its eyes are grown over by his pale skin. He has a pickaxe made of bones, said to be the bones of his own mortal body. One point of interest is that his feet are covered in his robes, and that he never leaves footprints when he walks, as if he were gliding over the ground. Zyphus is a deity of accidental death. Accidental. Yes, he also has power over deaths by actual accident, but you will see most of these deaths are not exactly. We use the word clean here. But it is believed that at every death which is brought about by accident or accident, it slowly makes him stronger. He also represents those who rage against the gods just like he does, and wants to see them all undone. Many of his followers do not treat him exactly like a god, but as instead a partner in their grief and a personification of their rage, who will one day be strong enough to make the gods pay for the suffering they have caused. Zyphus' followers are like him, those who have been dealt an unfair hand in life, and wish to take it out on everyone possible. Why come to terms with a loved one's death when you can become cold and bitter? Am I right? They work to prove the futility of life by having others experience accidents. Accidents. They set up traps in order to have people receive accidental injuries or suffer accidental deaths. Accidents. One more time. Accidents. They also spend their time attacking those who are successful, no matter how they gained that success. And by attack, I mean write them angry letters or yell at them before running away. Yes, this is the Cairn religion. Followers of Zyphus tend to work in cells, each claiming a city or region for themselves. It should be known that while all faiths have their own adventures, Zyphus's followers especially like adventures because it gives them a chance to stay in the background and lead their party into, say it with me now, accidents, especially including mysteriously reset traps or using spells that hit their party members. Be careful who you trust with a fireball. As for the clerics, their main job is to recruit to the faith. Recruit. So many interesting words today. Anyway, they either find someone who is suffering from random fate, or who are themselves a victim of an accident the priest himself caused, and leads them to embrace their suffering. Priests in the cities take on jobs where they can sabotage buildings so they can fall down. Make cheap weapons designed to break at the worst time. Or work as doctors to tilt the scales on those who could be saved to the bad side. Many disguise themselves as priests of other religions, especially Pharasma, Brig, or Toreg. It has also been noted that many followers of Zyphus do not stay dead easily, returning as undead to continue to make the living suffer and avoid Pharasma's judgment. Which brings us to our first side tangent of the day, the part of the show where I raise long-lost information up from the dead. To start out, the Zyphus Stone, which is a minor artifact, so... Hello. Here we go to talk through something's better left buried. The Zyphus Stone was first discovered by the Aslanti, but was found to be too dangerous, so they buried it in what would one day be Talden. It was rediscovered recently by a worshipper of Zyphus, it being buried under a playhouse which was once served as a temple to Eridan, everyone's favorite dead god. The stone itself caused a group of Pathfinder agents one hell of a headache. The stone has the power to turn people into zombies. Some speculate to allow the followers of Zyphus the power to worship their god even after death, without having to deal with the big lady's judgment. It also has the ability to lock all doors and stop someone from escaping through spells like Dimension Door, making sure guests do not leave the monster mash early. Going back to Loremaster, Zyphus' followers are not build temples, but tend to borrow spaces for their worship. They favor abandoned graveyards or mausoleums, but any formerly hallowed ground is their favorite. Zyphus' followers go around defacing any marks made to keep him out, which is done commonly enough in Avistan graveyards because the cultists keep doing this. And if they are making this plan to stay in a graveyard for a long time, they tend to move things around to better fit their practices. As for shrines, they are made from headstones. The more stolen and defaced, the better. Or bone banquets, or bone bouquets, you're not eating them, or bone bouquets, left at places where the meaningless death happened. Once there was a time when Zyphus held a domain within the material plane, but those days have long passed. See, story says that he received a visit by the daemons of Abaddon, specifically followers of the horseman of death. Charon had an offer for him, and Ugathoa, but this is not her video. He offered to give the two of them, I guess we can talk about both of them for now, the two of them land within Abaddon with nothing in return. Though both were wary of the terms, they both now reside in the given land, and followers of both are considered allies by daemons. Going back to just Zyphus himself, he resides within the realm of Ugathoa, in a field of open graves, made to mock the boneyard. Now for miscellaneous facts about the faith. First, the Grim Harvestman's faith is scattered across Avistan. You'll find it down in Kiadira, up through Taldor and Galt. More northern, you have large center of worships in Numeria, and some scatterings down in the River Kingdom. Both Usulab and Varisian, our old friends, contend with Zyphus' faithful. Finally, Nidal and the southern lands already full of despair, suit him nicely. His faith has two holidays: the Day of Grinding Teeth, where the followers of Zyphus do whatever they can to annoy the followers of Pharasma, and the Sinking of Lost Souls, where multiple cells try to kidnap a high-ranking priest of Pharasma's during their holy day and drown them. He has no official holy text, but the book Letters of Harsh Truth is one known by many. In it are words that mock the gods, tell humans to just accept their inevitable death, and tell followers how to deal with specific sufferings. Let's add deal to our words, shall we? Priests tend to directly quote this book in their various angry letters. Which brings us to our second side tangent, and return to our old friend Divine Anthology to look at an apocryphal sect of Zyphus' faith, and a book related to it. Most Zyphon worshippers tend to tailor their accidents to specific victims. After all, an accident needs as much thought put into it as possible. However, some sects of the Grim Harvestman's worship have adopted the writings known as Sowing Despair, which encourages them to make nature itself work against humanoids. Well, humanoids. You know what I meant. They do this by planting dangerous plants, especially those which grow thorns, all across the Lake Encharten area, hoping to have explorers be killed by these plants. You know, in actual accidents. And on to our third side tangent. Places of worship of Zyphus. Specifically, Numeria seems to be a place where the most of these sites we know of seem to be focused. This is mostly due to it being a country of strange tech that people hardly know how to use correctly. And more than once there's been nuclear disasters. What better place for the god of accidents to take up residence? The first of these sites, the Plain of 10,000 Swords. This place was created from a pointless war between two killer chieftains who continued until they were killed by their own soldiers. All the soldiers who died are bound to their weapons, and anyone who dies there shares the same fate. The other place we'll look at is the Palace of Fallen Stars. Like all Numeria technology, the palace is full of unpredictable and poorly understood machinery, which is why a group of Zyphus oracles, the Black Seers, used the palace as a temple since the rise of the nation's first black sovereign. There has been kind of a crackdown on their antics in recent years, but definitely not as badly as the group that was directly doping the king to do their bidding. But with that said, moving on, finally we have allies and relationships of other deities. It is said all of Zyphus's planar allies were mortals who died peacefully in their sleep after living a long life of worship of Zyphus. We have Encharten, an olive-skinned priestess who specializes in debates and insults. She can turn into a cloud of gray smoke and has a soft spot for animals. Strange detail to mention, but it was mentioned. We have Iron Shade, a man who is a walking nervous tick. He has the power to turn himself from a flesh bag form to a bone form, and he is especially nervous around children. Finally, we have Zyphus' Herald, Grave Dragger, a humanoid mass of grave dirt and bones. He can also appear as Grinning Jack, a human man unnaturally thin and with an unnatural smile. For other gods, Zyphus, well, pulling off the bandage, he is more or less a small player in the game of souls, seen as little more than a mosquito by most deities. He directly works against Pharasma and has a pretty good relationship with Ugathoa. Besides those two, he is also working to corrupt the goddess of suicide, Nidari, trying to turn the Abaddon duet into a trio. Which brings us to our final side tangent. An area where the worship of Zyphus is strong and is related to other geographical locations we not only covered this month, but a few times in the past and a few times in the future. Lake Encharten. This is the largest body of water in Avistan, bordered by the nations of Usulov, Resmeran, and Kyonin, which are nations we have at least mentioned before, and Northun, Nemathos, Droma, and Last Walls / the Gravelands, places we haven't got to yet. It is also home to four major capitals of these nations. Calipus, which we covered last week, see the Ustalav video. Kurs of Droma, Thornstep of Razmaran, and Tamran of Nemathos. It was also, until recently, a major trade area across Avistan, being the largest body of water just right in the center. It was an easy place for water shipping. However, this changed recently with the return of the Whispering Tyrant, just like everything else in the area. He still sits in the center of the lake, on the island which has always been his capital, the Isle of Terror, which has enough about it that we will put a rain check on the actual island until the day we cover the tyrant himself, most likely. And that is everything for today. More short than usual, but Zyphus doesn't really have much to him, really. Still interesting to see that Zyphus was the first god I looked into outside of the main 20, but hey, the holidays and my own rules demanded it. Already for next year, I am looking into hopefully getting into one of our dead ladies. But considering where Starfinder is currently going, still probably not going to have to set them aside for longer than that. But why am I talking about next year, when we have a monthly market creeping in with cursed items next week? I hope to see you all then.